do today, but the main thing I want you to know about, what precinct organizing is doing. I want you to know what new volunteers we need, because we are being so stupidly ambitious. No, not stupid, but, oh, Debbie's on? Okay, good. Okay, great. Oh, Debbie, is she coming in?
No, she's on Zoom.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Hi, Debbie. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so do you want to talk now or do you want to wait for
If I
business?
could do now, because I got to go into a meeting here.
We have our Congresswoman Debbie Dingell with us today, as every month, virtually every month. Hey, Debbie, thank you for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm in Washington. I am taking weekend duty. Democrats are in. I want to be really, really clear to everybody that we are in a government shutdown, and it is a Republican shutdown. You need to remember that. The Republicans control the White House, the House, and the Senate. And we are here. We are ready to work. I'm here with Keem. We came in full force Monday and Tuesday. You saw us on the floor. We had 180 members here. We're willing to do bipartisan negotiations and come to the table. But I want to talk to you about there are so many things that we are fighting for. But as we get to this point of what they call a simple continuing resolution, which it is not, we already know the damage that has been done by the big, I can use about 25 adjectives, none of them are, but shitty is the nicest, bill is already having repercussions in Michigan. There are a couple of hospitals that are close to closing. While they made the effective date for after the November 26 elections, its impact is already raising insurance prices. Blue Cross Blue Shield, you heard initially that they wanted an 18% increase. They've now put in for a 24% rate increase for this year in Michigan. But now we have the Affordable Care Act. People are starting to get the cost of the premiums now. They're being mailed. The exchange opens on November 1st, and the Affordable Care Tax Credit expires at the end of December. We don't have time. Their continuing resolution would expire the Friday before Thanksgiving. Here's the reality. We're going to be back in the same boat, but those decisions are being made now. And millions of people are going to lose their health insurance. They're not going to be able to afford it. Take somebody who lives in our district, the 6th district, a 60-year-old couple, both ages 60, combined income $82,000. Their insurance premium will be $11,250, a 164% increase in the cost of their insurance if the Affordable Tax Credit expires. And that's what we're fighting for. We know if you're talking to people right now, I'm there, I'm around every place. People are worried about the cost of everything, the cost of food, they can't find a house, can't afford rent. They can't afford their health care. Utility bills are going up. We have to take a stand. And the other problem is even the bill that got approved earlier this year in the budget, the president is doing pocket rescissions, and money that we appropriated and authorized has not been spent on school lunches. It has not been spent for law enforcement. All these things that people say they care about and want to see the money spent on, it hasn't happened. So, and I want us to also, I could talk about so many things today because there are so many things to talk about, but I came home for Yom Kippur, so I was home for 36 hours, and I did a lot of stuff. And by the way, just to get a sense of what these people are, the TSA agents had been asking to meet, so we were going to have a meeting. Then that was scheduled, and then I said, well, let's just keep it. And AFGE bought lunch for their officers who were working because they're not being paid. And TSA, I worked on this it was ridiculous, all Wednesday night, would not allow their officers. I called Delta, said, could you get us a private room? I talked to the county. Ultimately, many calls later, TSA would not allow their officers to take a lunch on airport property or to even pick up meals on any place if they were in uniform, and got warned on Thursday morning that if they met with us, that Rashida was with me, that there would be very serious consequences. So we didn't meet with TSA, but we did meet with the airport, the traffic controllers. FAA allowed us to do that. They understand why we're fighting, but these are people that are in one of the most stressful jobs there is in this country. And now they're working without money and worried about their mortgage payments, their car payments. One young officer had never been through this. They had just put in an offer on a home. So we got a lot of government workers in Washtenaw County, and they're hurting. And so I want us to be empathetic and understanding and supportive there too. There's so much stuff going on, and the No Kings rallies are on the 18th. I'm assuming people are going to talk about that. It's every hour here. I can't tell you what it's like. It is every hour. There is something new, and people are really being hurt, but we got to take a stand. So I'm taking a stand. I'm down here. I'm part of the weekend team that we're standing for the American people. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, and happy to answer any questions and let Teresa get back to her full agenda.
Thank you, Debbie. Can I ask for one question? We have a question from the audience or Zoom? We have a crazy agenda. Anybody? Just to say thank you to our Congresswoman, and I want to make sure that you say thank you to our senators. Both of our senators are opposing the continuing resolution. They are both standing firm, demanding that Americans can afford health care. This is, we know, I mean, what an incredibly cruel budget this is, and cruel, amoral administration, an entire Republican Party. Our senators, and they didn't before, to find out how to contact our senators, mivoter.org. That is your source for all information about all of our electeds, and also about protests and about petitions that are out there and so forth. mivoter.org, created by volunteers of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party. Yeah, right. I mean, powerful, really cool, and now it's in statewide. So we're very.
Teresa, I want to say to people, please thank your senators. Give them the positive feedback and tell them you are hoping they're going to stand firm.
Yes.
They are targets there'll be another vote I know I look awful. I've not gotten a lot of sleep lately. There'll be another vote in the Senate on Monday. Johnson had declared we had a district work period for next week unless something changes. And I can work with Teresa to keep people updated. I want to mention one other thing, and I think we need to have a discussion about this at another meeting. The horrific shooting at the Mormon church last week. Political violence is growing. I mean, we have got to all work together so that we have freedom of speech and are protecting our democracy and people not being physically threatened. And more people that aren't like us that are coming to meetings, are not afraid to speak up, are being threatened. And we got to work to de-escalate the political rhetoric, keep people safe, and not be afraid to speak up. We cannot lose our freedom of speech. I'm not going to be one of those people that will ever be silenced, but I'm very worried about the violence in this country today and hope we can all work on that. But I think it's very important that we have the largest demonstrations that we have ever seen on October 18th, that we will not be silenced. And I promise you that I am working with all of the local law enforcement for every No King to make sure that, and I know that Indivisible is too, because I've talked to, as we're all working to make sure people are safe. So we got to de-escalate the violence, but not be afraid to show up and to be strong. And many of our faith-based people met with the Black ministers on Thursday, are very worried about safety. The Jewish community has been for a couple of years. God willing, we're going to see the hostages come home. There's so much, I'm telling you, it's every hour. But let's all be really aware of safety, but not become afraid to speak up and speak out.
100%. And I want to say that most of the political violence happening in this country right now is being perpetrated by the administration, by this administration. People are dying in ICE custody. They're being brutalized by masked agents, unidentified. Did you all see about what happened in Chicago the other morning?
Frightening.
God, shackling, zip tying naked children together. Why isn't this all over every news station? The political violence primarily is being perpetrated by this administration. So let's be super clear about that and not be intimidated by, oh, these nasty, radical left people. That is complete bullshit, as you know. So let's just be super clear about that. And I also want to say, yeah, the No Kings gatherings are really, really important, and Edevbie is doing a fantastic job. But it's really important for us to build sustainable networks of pro-democracy coalitions on the ground everywhere. And Washington County Democratic Party is leading an alliance of progressive allies throughout the county called Washington Alliance 2026 Plus. We're meeting in potlucks every second Sunday from 5 to 8 p.m. The first, we only had one. The second one is this coming Sunday, a week from tomorrow. And I want you all to be aware of it. And part of what we're doing, we're building on, quite consciously, we're building on the Indivisibles framework for understanding what supports authoritarian structures and how we resist and help to break down those pillars of authoritarianism. So it's, I don't have a board to write on here, but it's WashingtonDems.org/potluck-sign-up. We'll get you there.
Yep, it's up there on the screen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I love you. I'll stay close.
Debbie.
We love you too.
Love you too.
Thanks.
So come this next week, we're working on, we have Professor William Lopez from the University of Michigan to come and talk with us about the violence of immigration suppression and attacks. And Melanie Harner from Wicker, Washington Interfaith Coalition for Immigrant Rights, to also talk about what's happening here in Washington County and what that actual impact is. And then I'm inviting members of the County Board of Commissioners and also Jimmy Wilson to talk with us, Representative Jimmy Wilson. This is a surprise to him. I haven't mentioned it to him yet. I'm going to, and Jimmy, if you're listening, but we want them to come and talk with us about the real impact in Washington County of what's happening at the federal level. And also we're going to be thinking, like identifying mutual aid networks and understanding how to plug into them and where gaps might be. And nobody knows that better than the County Board of Commissioners. So of whom we have 2 members here today. Thank you. Katie and Annie. Hello, everybody. They worked really hard. So thank you. Okay, so, and welcome to all of the new people. I'm seeing so many new faces, and it's just really great to see you all here. I want you to know about some of the other work we're doing. Janet and Josh, are you still here? Yeah, come on up, just real quick, because we're already over time, but I just want you to understand what we're doing in terms of precinct organizing. And which is our core work, right? We need to get people out. And I also want you to be aware that we need volunteers. We're doing a lot. And right now, one of the big things we need volunteers to help with is events, like bringing people together. All of you who've ever done an event, know it's a lot of work. So you friends at home on Zoom, anybody here in the room who just loves managing events, please see Sharon Simonton. Sharon's our volunteer coordinator, and we really need some help. And of course, even behind the scenes events are pretty fun.
It's fun. You can email me at volunteer@WashingtonDems.org.
Volunteer@WashingtonDems.org. All right. And now our 2 co-chairs of precinct organizing who are really doing a ton of work.
Okay, I'll start. Janet. So in precinct organizing, we have basic objectives. Okay, building our volunteer base and building voter contacts. People, we only hear from you when you come asking for our vote during the election. And the more we can build interpersonal relations in our neighborhoods, the better it's going to go. Our actions are basically neighborhood gatherings. We just did one in Burns Park. Pretty easy there. There's a lot of places where it's more challenging, but that's having somebody on the ground. Any one of us can be a block captain, just in charge of knowing who's who on their block, knowing who's voting, who's moved in, who's moved out, building our list. Because as many of you have done things like distribute the voter guides or doing canvassing on the campaigns, and we all know how frustrating the voter lists are, whether we get them from Van, whether we get them from Wave. We need to update them. We need to have more on the ground granular knowledge about where our voters are, right? So that's something everybody can help with. Building these neighborhood gatherings is really fruitful. It's a way of finding more volunteers, but also of helping people feel more informed and connected, even when they don't volunteer. So building the voter list, we ask people to do some door knocking. If you can't do door knocking, or for any reason that you're not happy about that, there are many other ways to help too. We also have a whole pile of new tools. Our committee has spent quite a long time with our volunteer Vishu building some new tools and learning how to get some use out of AI without letting it run things.
Hello, everyone. My name again is Josh McAllister. So for the last 8 months, we've tried to implement, AI within small organizations, like the American Legion. We just had Ms. Dingle, and we had some good bipartisan conversations at that. We have Vishu that's creating a tool that allows us to do messaging as well and try to do that. But the only way we can do this is through events, right? So we have to be able to test the tools. And so that's what we've been doing. We try to do a budget event, and that event, Jimmy Wilson and everybody and Jason, they were going to be the victims that were speaking, but they ended up battling the budget, up in Lansing. So we weren't able to actually try that. But while we're doing that, we're doing messaging. We have Dirk in the background that takes his data and we implement that into them tools. So that's what we're doing. And so if you can, if you have an idea to do a event, please bring it to us so that we can continue to test. Right? We don't want to come into the general election and then, hey, let's try this new thing. We want to have something ready, right? That it's we want to do a farming thing in Superior Township, right? And that's our next one. And we're gonna try to do that, December, first week of December, second week, right before Christmas and things of that nature. So we would love your support in that. And we want to hear from farmers if you know some farmers. And then there's the IFC farmers market going on right now. So stop there after.
Yeah.
All right.
Right, thank you.
So we could use people who are willing to do small scale work in their neighborhoods, who are willing to do what precinct delegates do, whether you're elected or not, more having a view of their whole precinct. And we could also use people to help us share some of these tools and approaches with other parties in other areas. So if anybody's interested in that kind of action.
We're trying to lock it down. It's either going to be the first week or second week of December.
If you're not signed up for our newsletter, go sign up for our newsletter on WashingtonOnDems.org, WashingtonOnDems.org. Sign up there, and then you'll have all of this information. We have a new vice chair of communications, Janice Townsend, in the back. Our wonderful person, Erica Lycan, has been kind of trying to human it on their own, and it's been challenging. And we're really glad that Janice is here. So we're gonna really power our communications. And also, let me just say, we need help with everything. We really need help with everything. And there's a place for you it's easy to feel paralyzed.
I'm emotional now. It's easy to feel paralyzed in the face of these attacks on our democracy and on our neighbors and friends. The outrage is, as Debbie said, it's just like something new every, not day, every hour. It's horrifying, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed and to feel paralyzed, but there is work for you to do with the Dems. And there's a lot of criticism of the Dems, and that's fine, I get it. But you know what? You know who's standing for us is the Democrats, and it's only the Democrats. Every single Republican is on side with the authoritarian project. So, you know, whatever your criticism are the Democratic Party. Of course, you don't have any because you're here, but just always vote and tell everybody you know to always vote no matter what their critiques are. And the easiest way to stay in touch with what's happening and how to get in touch with your people is mivoter.org. Just bookmark that and tell everybody you know about it, because that is how to find out what's going on. Eli, you want to start the panel? I just want to say while Eli is coming up, and first panelist, please come on up as well. Barb, Aghogho, please come on up. I also want to say among the events we're doing besides the monthly potlucks, which are a lot of work, and if you want to help with planning on the potlucks, please, you are more than welcome. Again, write to volunteer at WashingtonDems.org. If you want to plug directly into precinct organizing, write to POC at WashingtonDems.org. And I also just want to say on October 26th, so 3 weeks from Sunday, I told you we're busy, we're having an event at the Freight House, a Halloween family fun event at the Freight House, free to anybody who wants to come. My invitations to electeds are going out like today, but just want y'all to know about that. It's on the website yet. It'll be on the website. Everybody come. We want you there. All right. Thank you. Sorry to run over.
Good morning. I'm Eli Nathans on the WCDP Programs Committee. And I'd like to welcome the candidates for the position of Secretary of State. If you would, your position, please take your seats. Thank you. I'll just start with some thank yous. This meeting is being projected on Zoom, and we also have sound thanks to Jim Russo. So thank you so much, Jim. I want to thank Tom Kosh and Jeff Halter for helping people find our new location for this meeting. Appreciate that volunteering. I want to thank Brianne Weymouth, who's going to be the timekeeper. So sitting in the front row. You'll hear more about her later. This is the scheme of maneuver for the panel. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to state introductory remarks, why they're running. We're going to proceed alphabetically by last name. So Barb Byrum, Aghogho Edevbie, if I'm mispronouncing your name, please let me know. And Aghogho. I looked it up online. I'm gonna ask 2 or 3 questions, and then questions will be opened from the floor. The way we do things is your questions are not filtered. So raise your hand. Please stick to the question. I'd like to keep to 20 or 30 seconds. And then each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, again, moving alphabetically by last name. So the statements will start with Barb Byrum. The answer to the questions will start with Mr. Edevbie, etc. At the end of the panel, there will be 2 minutes for closing statements by each candidate, again, in the order that the questions kind of left them in. I believe that is all you need to know. So I'm going to start with some questions. And I provided the candidates with these questions before the meeting. First question. The Secretary of State is responsible for supervising the process by which members of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Open.
Oh, you're right. Right, forgot. Okay. Too many things going on. Thank you very much. Barb Byrum.
Hi, my name is Barb Byrum. I am running for Secretary of State because Michigan needs a secretary who's ready, willing, and able to defend our democracy and fight to maintain access to the ballot box. I've been doing that work for over 12 years as the Ingham County Clerk. In fact, I've conducted 41 elections in that capacity. I've also conducted numerous recounts in that capacity. Prior to that, I served in the Michigan legislature for 6 years, 2 terms in the majority, which was lovely, and my last term in the minority, which was less fun. But I was the ranking Dem on redistricting elections the last time the legislature drew their districts. And I am so thankful for the Citizens Redistricting Commission that now draws fair districts, because at that time the Republicans controlled everything. And I made mention multiple times of how they were gerrymandering our districts and splitting communities of interest. So I'm very thankful for the Citizens Redistricting Commission. I also owned and operated a retail hardware store for nearly 20 years. So I understand customer service. I understand listening to the customers and listening to their needs. And I bring that with me to the Secretary of State's office. I was born in a small business, so I have that work ethic that was instilled in a young child, working in a hardware store as well. I have my bachelor's degree from Michigan State University, as well as my law degree from Michigan State University. I look forward to earning your support as I run to be your next Secretary of State.
I was excited. I'd ask you, let's hold the applause. At the very end, there'll be a chance to applaud each candidate. Mr. Edevbie.
Well, I want to thank everybody here for skipping the football game today to be with us to talk about democracy. I'm a U of M alum, so go blue. But I like to think about my pathway to this moment and how I got here. You know, my parents are Nigerian immigrants. And when I was growing up, I learned a lot about the fragileness of the democracy in that country. And they didn't have their first presidential election until my mom was 19 years old. She stood in this enormously long line with my grandfather, her father. And at some point, she got really frustrated and wanted to get out of line. But my grandfather said to her, no, we've got to persist. We've got to ensure that we cast our ballots, because democracy is our collective responsibility. And we're in a similar moment right now, with ICE being sent to Chicago, with this government shutdown, thousands of people being left without health care. It's a crisis, and it's okay for us to feel a little bit frightened about where we are. But I want to ground this moment in some hope. You know, my dad, who worked, for the Detroit Water Department for 35 years, protecting our water as a union man, told me that people make history, and every single person here has the potential to make history. And just 4 years ago at TCF, when Trump sent a MAGA team to try and stop the count of absentee ballots, we stopped him. We stopped him. We put in place measures, and I was leading the fight to make sure that we had affidavits of all the information of the procedures of what actually happened. So when they tried unsuccessfully to stop the certification, we were ready. But we came out of that realizing that there was more that we had to do. And I put on my lawyer cap and worked with Promote the Vote and ACLU to put Proposal 2 on the ballot, which brought us early voting, drop boxes in every single election, prepaid postage on absentee ballot envelopes, to ensure that we had an opportunity that elections would only be certified on the basis of your ballots and nothing else. But look, Trump won. So we have to face the consequences of that. Just last week, the DOJ filed suit against this state, against our department, to try and seize everyone's voter data, your personally identifiable information. When we got that letter a few months ago, we said hell no to that, because we're not going to compromise the integrity of our election system for any wannabe dictator. We have to fight. But let's remember why we're here. We're here because of dark money in our politics. We cannot allow dark money to influence the electoral system of the state. We have to constantly fight back. Now, every election is a choice, and this election is like no other. We have an administration that is going to try and destroy our electoral system, destroy our democracy, to set up a dictatorship. We have to have a Secretary of State who is ready to be Secretary of State on day one, and I am. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm going to earn it. I'm going to be across all 83 counties, and I look forward to having more conversations with everyone in this room. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My name is Adam Hollier. First name, Adam, easy to remember. Last name, Hollier, a little bit harder. Looks like Hollier, sounds like Hollier. I did 2 terms in the Michigan Senate, and then I ran the Veterans Affairs Agency in Governor Whitmer's cabinet. I think in moments like this, it's always important to kind of get a feel for who people are. So I have 2 little kids. I have a 4-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter. And my daughter came in a scary way. She was 7 weeks early. And so I got sick and went home for 1 day while my wife was in the hospital. And so when we had our second, my wife was like, we're coming in as 2, we're leaving as 3. There'll be no pauses, there'll be no breaks. And I only say that because my wife was carrying a baby during the height of the pandemic. And so my son was born the day before President Biden got elected. And so I got a call from the hospital 1 day in, and the Biden team's like, hey, will you come down to the TCF Center? And I was looking at my wife, who was looking at me. And for all of you who've had those moments where you know that you are absolutely about to say no in a moment where you should be saying yes, but you want to stay married, my wife's like, no, he's on the way. So I was a little surprised, but in that moment, you got to feel for what kind of person I am, right? In the moment where I should be with my family, I was out doing the work because I pledged to my constituents and my community that I was going to be present. And so I was down at the TCF Center with only one other member of the legislature and was able to talk about this moment and push back across it as we went back to the legislature as Republicans, said all the things that they said as people were banging on the glass and saying, stop the count and doing all those other kind of things. You need somebody who's going to show up and has a track record of showing up, but most importantly, of getting things done. So I unfortunately had to serve in the minority, but got a bill signed in the 5 year that I served, was routinely ranked as one of the most effective legislators, and brought back more money to my district than all but a handful of members while I served in the legislature. And as you think about your next Secretary of State, I think it's going to be critically important that you have somebody who can get things done, because I know, like many of you, I'm frustrated when we're talking about getting things done or trying to scare you about what the president or Republicans are going to do, because Democrats have always been the people who say, hey, we are going to do things that make your lives better. And that's what I got an opportunity to do as a legislator. It's what I think we need to be doing when you think about your next Secretary of State, because our democracy is on the line. And what that looks like is somebody who's going to make sure that you are better able to participate in elections. A big part of that is pushing back against the kind of misinformation that we see from all kinds of other folks. But most importantly, it's somebody who is going to do the things to make sure that you have confidence in your system, because a lot of folks don't today. It means making sure that everybody has an ID, because we now live in a country where someone in an unmarked van with a mask on can roll up on you and say, hey, let me see your papers. And whether you have them or not could disappear you to a country you've never been to, could break down your door and completely fundamentally change the way you live. And that's unacceptable. As we talk about what people are deeply frustrated with, it's that they can't understand how money continues to move our politics. And the next Secretary of State is going to have a big role in making sure that you can be a part of the transparency that we just don't see today. So again, my name is Adam Hollier, and I'm running to be your next Secretary of State. Again, first name Adam, easy. Last name looks like Hollier, sounds like Hollier.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please hold the applause. I'll get to applause at the end. I should have mentioned first how the timekeeper is going to work. So Rayanne, could you hold up the yellow card? So when there are 30 seconds left in the 2-minute time period for answering a question, Rayanne will hold up the yellow card. When the 2 minutes are up, she'll hold up the red card. I don't know. Did I say it's just how we do things here. Without further ado, I'll ask the first question to Mr. Edevbie. Secretary of State is responsible for supervising the process by which members of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission are chosen. How can the Secretary of State best contribute to ensuring that the pool from which the commission members are drawn is large and diverse?
Yeah, I think one thing that we should start the conversation on is to think about what the process was before, when politicians got to choose their own voters. And what were the consequences of that? Under the last redistricting process in 2010, we had a legislature that empowered the governor to put emergency managers in place all across the state. The Flint water crisis happened directly because of the last redistricting process. And that's wrong. And so we have to have a redistricting process, and thankfully we do through the No Voters Not Politicians process, that has the ability to include every single person in this state. The next Secretary of State has to lead the way in informing our electorate. Now, what does that mean? Under the law, under that constitutional amendment, the Secretary of State has to send out 10,000 random applications to people across the state. I want to go beyond that. I want to send a postcard to every single active registered voter about the redistricting process, to give them a link to a website where they can learn how to apply and also learn how they can participate in the redistricting process. I and the next Deputy Secretary of State are going to travel to every single corner of the state, every single media market, to inform people of how they can be involved and how they can apply. On top of that, we're going to work with community leaders in every single county to train them on how they can train their own networks about the process, what it means, and how they can be involved. The more people that are involved in the process, the better product we're going to have at the end. And look at what happened last time. We had the fairest maps we've had in the history of this state, which resulted in us having a Democratic trifecta. We have to get there again because there's too much on the line. There's too much on the line. We have to have a legislature that's going to stand up and fight for the things that matter, like a Michigan Voting Rights Act, like funding for local election officials.
Thank you. Adam Hollier.
Like many of you, I had petitions for Voters Not Politicians. If we want to get people involved, we're going to have to do the same thing. You need to call your friends and neighbors and encourage them to do that. As your next Secretary of State, that's what I'm going to do. We also need to recognize that the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission made a lot of mistakes because they didn't have enough guidance, right? When we look at what Black communities look like, when we look at some of the communities of interest, there were mistakes made. And that was because folks didn't have enough training, they didn't have enough guidance, they didn't have enough support. And so what we also have to do is make sure that we recruit people and encourage people to do it. You all need to encourage your neighbors, your residents, your friends to participate, because that's what this is going to take. It is really difficult to take a random name out of a hat and find somebody who has experience mapping, who understands geography and demographics and can list 20 counties in this state. But we are asking people to do that. We're asking them to do a ton of really difficult work. And the only way they're going to be successful is if we participate and make this better. Right now, you see all across the country a push for partisan gerrymandering because the president called the governor of Texas and said, hey, find me 5 more seats. Crazy. But Democrats are like, hey, man, we need to do something similar. That's not what we need to do. What we need to do is make independent citizens redistricting commissions work all across the country. We need to make sure that ours is a model, which means that it's working, which means that people are able to participate, that it's getting those things right. And the only way that happens is if really good, educated, involved, invested people participate in the process and come out and ask to be included. So what I'm going to do is make sure that we come back and see you, that you work through with your friends and neighbors to get everybody involved, because we are only going to have as good of a system as we are willing to demand and build.
Thank you very much, Barb Byrum.
So as I mentioned earlier, I was the ranking Dem on redistricting and elections back when the legislators chose their voters. And it was disgusting the way they gerrymandered districts, the way they split communities of interest. As your next Secretary of State, I will offensively go out to all communities in our state, specifically those communities of interest, to make sure that they are applying to become members of that commission, to educate them on what that means. The Democrats and the Republicans, they will get the Democrat and Republican members, but it's imperative that we are also encouraging those nonpartisan members to apply by going to churches, by going to synagogues, by going to Kiwanis and all those nonpartisan community groups as well, to encourage participation. I come from a very conservative district in my county. People think of Ingham County, they think of Lansing and East Lansing. I represented one of the most conservative House districts at the time. The House district I represented was 50-50 Dem base. And I think that is imperative of proper representation in our state. When we have districts that are drawn fairly, those legislators operate in the best interest of our state. And that's what we need to continue moving forward towards. So I'm so thankful for the Citizens Redistricting Commission. I circulated those petitions on my free time, and it is good to see that being implemented.
Thank you very much. Adam Hollier, you will answer first this question. Also, I just want to remind the audience that this meeting is being recorded. The video will be placed on the Washington Dems website probably by early next week. So next question. This will be a paired question. One, do you believe that primaries should continue to be held in August, or should they be moved to earlier in the year? Why or why not? And if we adopt ranked choice voting, would that require moving the date of the primary?
Look, again, everything we do should be, how are we getting more people to be able to participate in this process? And so that is the lens with which I take every one of these questions that we think about this. Moving the primary does a couple things. It allows folks more time to get to know general election candidates. So right now you have a quick sprint, right? Like you win an August primary and then 90 days later, bam, there's an election. And what that does is it makes it easier as an incumbent to win. It makes it easier when you don't have contested primaries. It makes it easier for us to get a lot of the same. And so if moving up the primary date does that, great. What we also have to recognize is just how hard it is for a clerk, right? You have a handful of days to flip and turn around and do that. So if we move it to May, it gives people a lot more time to, one, get to know candidates. It gives clerks more time and space in a time where everybody is pushing for more and more and more and more information sooner and better. I know a number of folks are excited about ranked choice voting. When I was in the legislature, I introduced legislation to do that. If we're going to do things like that, clerks are going to need more time. And so what we should be thinking is, how do we give voters more opportunities to really get to know candidates, to bring them out and to work with them, and for clerks to have the time to make sure that we get good information and do all the things necessary to be successful. So yes, I would be okay with us moving up the election. I think it gives folks a little bit more time, and you'll get to see folks out knocking doors a little bit sooner and talking to you. So I'm a fan.
Thanks very much. Byrum.
I absolutely support moving the primary election to May or June. As chair of the Michigan Association of County Clerks, I have advocated for just that for more than a decade. We know now with the changes in election law, minimum of 9 days of early voting. Those move ballots, those military and overseas voter ballots, they need to be out 45 days prior to the election. We have audits, we have recounts, we have all sorts of things that clerks, local clerks primarily, need to do between those two election days. So I know that we have to move that date. We've been asking for it for over a decade, and now the legislature is thinking about it. There is legislation. It's not likely to happen for 2026, but we need that date to move. I know election administration. I know why it needs to move, and it's because of all the new access that we have demanded, right? And we've had to demand that. We wanted to increase access to the ballot box. The legislature sure as heck wasn't going to do it. So we did that. We did that by circulating petitions, getting those signatures, getting it on the ballot, and getting it to pass in our Constitution for those minimum of 9 days of early voting. The access to drop boxes, and the date needs to be moved. It needs to be moved because clerks don't have enough time. They don't have the resources. They don't have the staffing to turn that around and get ready for that general election. And that's why, with my experience, I support moving that primary election. Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edevbie.
I also agree that we need to move the primary date for a number of reasons. One, to give clerks more time to get things done. In terms of the ranked choice, I'm not going to take a position on it because as Deputy Secretary of State, I'm going to be involved in the process of certifying whether ranked by choice actually makes the ballot. So I want to be neutral on that. But if it actually does pass and gets into law, we have to have a Secretary of State who knows how to implement complex constitutional amendments. I was hired specifically for that purpose for Proposal 2. We worked with clerks across the state to ensure that it was implemented in a way. I led the effort to bring a new early voting e-poll book online. It's completely new software, cloud-based. We did that. We worked with organizations across the state to educate citizens. With Rank My Choice, we're going to have to, if that takes place, reprogram every single election machine in the state potentially, or buy new ones. There's going to be a lot of new procedures that we're going to have to put in place in terms of canvassing the vote, certifying the elections. Those are things that you cannot do overnight and that you have to have a strategist in charge leading the way. And I know how to do that because I've done it. And it led to 1.2 million Michiganders voting early for the first time last November. So let's continue to innovate because that innovation helps Michigan be one of the top states. We're number 2. New Mexico, we are coming for that number 1 spot, but we've got to continue to be aggressive about protecting our democracy and being number 1 in the country for election administration.
Thank you very much. I have a few more questions, but I'd now like to open the floor up to the audience if any of you have questions for the candidates. Sure. Janet Cannon.
Thank you. I'm wondering about the, I believe the Independent Redistricting Commission has a 2-year term. What's the length of their term and what kind of work are they doing now? Are they doing things which will make the process better next year? Is there significant work going on in that?
Thank you. So Barb Byrum will answer that question first.
So the maps are drawn. There were lawsuits in regards to the map, but their job is done for now. So the next Citizens Redistricting Commission would be decided, and they would be drawing the next maps. So right now their job is done, pending any outstanding lawsuits or anything like that, as I understand it.
I thought they had ongoing meetings.
Mr. Deputy.
They no longer have any. They were having ongoing meetings for quite some time because, after the maps were drawn, they needed to finalize that process. And then there were some lawsuits and they had to go through that process. But now there's no current pending there's no pending lawsuits on the table. So they're not currently meeting. And this has been a controversial aspect because, quite frankly, when you put a constitutional amendment on the ballot, you have to be really precise because there's so many things that you can't automatically change without another constitutional amendment. And the length of their term is one of those things that I don't think was fully thought through. Not taking nothing away from voters, not politicians, because the alternative was worse. But that's one of those things where it needs to be tightened up. And unfortunately, it's in a constitutional amendment process.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hollier, who do you want to add?
I think the question's been answered.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, I have a quick question. All 3 of you,
This is Lyndon Dibble.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm pretty sure all 3 of you mentioned that you want to change the Independent District Commission to be in some ways more self-selecting, as in sending out more application to people, making sure every active voter is getting an application and stuff like that. Wouldn't that make the process less independent and more self-selecting to active voters? Wouldn't we want people who are truly independent to politics drawing our borders? Or do you have any concerns about that aspect of making it more self-selecting?
Thank you very much, Mr. Edevbie. You'll be the first to answer that one.
So one thing to keep in mind, anybody can apply. That was the process that was in place when the amendment was implemented back in 2021. Anybody can apply, but there's a random selection process of those who apply. So having a bigger pool does not take away its independence. It just makes sure that there's more people to be selected from. The commission cannot determine who's on the board. Neither can the Secretary of State. We actually partner, and this happened while I was Deputy Secretary of State because we had some people resign for personal reasons. And there is a random selection process done by an outside vendor where they take all the names from people all across the state according to, and there's a number of different protocols and stipulations within the Constitution that demands how people are selected. And then we get that random selection of that individual to serve. And they are independent. They cannot report to the Secretary of State. They can report to the legislature. The amendment is written in such a way that they are very much, put aside from the rest of the political system so that they can make their decisions independently. And I will always defend that because I think the product that comes out of it is better than the previous product. Of course, there's things to be improved, but we're going to help them do the best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollier. Do you want to add anything?
I'm going to work really hard to make sure that we have a really good pool. And the way that you do that is by talking to folks and encourage them to apply. The same way we do with all democracy. Our system works best when more people participate. And so that means talking to folks, it means encouraging folks and recruiting people who I think will be good. Now, certainly it's going to be randomized section, but if you can put a bunch of people who are really committed to drawing good maps, who are invested, who are engaged, you're going to get a better product. And that is what we should be doing all across the board. It's why we want more people to vote. It's why we ask people to engage. It's why we talk to them about the issues. It is the thing that we should be doing in every juncture, saying, hey, how can I get you to participate in this thing? How can I get you to understand that? Because one of the big challenges that we saw last time is there were folks on the Independent Citizens Commission who had never been to some of these places in the state. Because honestly, most people have never been to every corner of the state. Most people don't know the difference between your neighborhood and my neighborhood. They don't know the cultural lines between those things. And the more that you get folks engaged to understand those things, the better off. And that's what this is about, is making sure that we get folks who are going to say, oh, yeah, I want to participate, because the more people who add themselves to the hat also makes them more likely to come and show up one day when they have those meetings, to come and organize, to draw their own maps and to talk about those things, because that was the difference maker across the state. I did a lot of organizing in my community and Black communities across the state to make sure that they recognized what our communities look like. And the reason that they had to redraw maps was because a lawsuit was filed because they really messed up in the neighborhoods that I'm from, in the community I'm from. But we were able to get it right in Flint, and we were able to do the right thing in Washington County. And that's what it's going to take. So again, Adam Hollier.
Thanks so much. Ms. Byrum.
The more that apply to serve on the commission, the better. The larger the pool, the better. And so I think it's imperative that we reach out to our neighbors, our family, our friends, to nonpartisan groups all around the state to make sure that they are applying to serve on this commission. Because the more opinions, the more people that are in that pool, the better.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take one more question from the audience here before I ask those who are online if they have questions. If you have a question online, please use the raise hand function, and I'll go in the order in which the hands appear. So I saw a hand up.
So you guys are talking about bringing more people. Oh, sorry,
Ma'am,
Kristen.
could you just identify yourself so the
Kristen Howard, precinct delegate in Ypsilanti Township. So people there, you are talking about bringing more people to the voting booth and to the polls, things like that. People with disabilities, it's really important to me as a survivor of a brain injury and on the board of directors for the Brain Injury Association of Michigan. I want to make sure that we are all represented. So people with disabilities are vulnerable members of our communities. If you do reprogram these machines or get new ones, what are you going to do to ensure every voting location is ADA compliant? And how do you ensure their rights are protected at those locations?
Let's see. We start now with, I think it's Mr. Hollier. You start first.
First, thanks for coming. And thanks for bringing up this really important issue. There is no, maybe we'll do it or kind of do it. All the three of us are all going to say, we're going to make sure that it happens, because one, it's the law. Two, it's the right thing to do. And three, if we aren't doing more to make sure that everybody feels comfortable participating, they won't. A big part of that is making sure that particularly our early voting locations are accessible and doing all those kind of things, but working with you and the other communities across the state to say, what do you need? What do we have to do? Because it's one thing to meet the letter of the law. It's another thing to meet the spirit. And that is a big difference in making sure that you're able to participate, that you feel comfortable and safe in these spaces, and that they're easily accessible. Because, right, like there's a difference between a freight elevator that you have to go use to get around to this space versus being able to wheel into a space. There's a difference between having the kind of technology and assistance that accommodate someone with a service animal or any of the other things that have to be thought about through that. And a big part of that comes from making sure that the legislature allocates the appropriate amount of resources to local clerks to do this kind of work, because the legislature and, governments at every level love telling a local community, you have to do these 22 things without giving them a dime to do it. And so as a former appropriator, I know just how important it's going to be to make sure that our local communities have the resources to make sure that they can support and take care of you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Byrum.
So as county clerk, I was county clerk during the implementation of the new system. So then the old system was the AutoMark. That was the ADA compliance system, and it was horrific. Many local clerks, specifically the smaller townships, wouldn't even take the automark out of the closet. They would leave it there. So when we implemented the new system, I have continued to make it a priority that when I certify the election workers and the local clerks, I do a lot of that training, a lot of that education certification for my smaller jurisdictions. I am forcing them to use the ADA system so that they understand how it works and they're not afraid of it. Also, I encourage the election workers and younger voters in particular to vote on the ADA system. And the reason I do that is because if one individual votes on the ADA system, it is obvious which ballot came from that system because it prints the ballot, right? And by having the election worker using a touch screen typically, having them also use it, it will create more ADA ballots inside that tabulator. So it's not as easy to tell how that one voter voted if there are multiple ADA voted ballots in the tabulator in the box. So I think what I have done as clerk is practical. I have forced election workers to use the system so they're not afraid of the system. So the next system that we implement, I'm going to do the same thing. Force clerks and election workers to use that system. We're talking about the locations of our polling locations. So many of them are not compliant. So many of them are the only public building in the area. In some spots in Michigan, it's a home. It's someone's home. And we have to recognize that with all of the changes, we have failed time and time again to invest in election administration in this state and in this country. It's critical infrastructure, but you wouldn't know it based on how poorly we have funded election administration.
Mr. Edevbie.
When the Carter Center came out with the report showing that in Metro Detroit, most polling locations are not ADA compliant, I was pretty appalled. But this is how I took action. I worked with the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, to put forward a Michigan Voting Rights Act. The Federal Voting Rights Act, many aspects of it are going to expire in the next few years. It is under attack by the Supreme Court. It's under attack by this administration and this Congress. We have to have a Michigan Voting Rights Act so that we can stand up for our own rights. And as part of that, there are 4 bills, 401, 402, SB 401, SB 402, SB 403, and SB 404. SB 404 focuses on disability rights to ensure that every single voter in the state actually has the ability to vote in the way that makes sense for them, with curbside voting and other necessary tools, and with the funding to make sure that we hold clerks accountable and that we also educate the public on what's available to them. Now, funding is a critical component. After I became Deputy Secretary of State, I asked the Bureau of Elections to do a study of how much it actually costs to run a complete election cycle in our state. $177 million. And most of that is borne by local governments themselves with no help from the legislature. So I got to work. I fought the legislature and I pushed them for funding. For the first time in 30 years, we got some funding to go directly to local administrations. What I want to do is create an election fund. You know, your income taxes, there's a checkoff for the state gubernatorial fund. We haven't used that in decades. Let's take that and give it to local election administrators, combine it with the $10 million of ongoing funding that we have for early voting implementation, invest that as we do with bonds so that we can grow that pot and start to have sustainable local election funding.
Thank you very much. There are actually no raised hands from those online, kind of unusual. Anyone else in the audience have questions?
Hi, John Reitzer. What about the non-voting aspects of Secretary of State? Cars, registration, vehicles, license plate renewals, branch offices, state IDs, that kind of thing. What plans do you have for administering that aspect of what the Secretary of State does?
Thank you very much. Ms. Byrum, you're first.
Thank you for that question. My background in customer service, I was raised in a small business, owned and operated a retail hardware store for nearly 20 years. I think the current Secretary of State has made some amazing improvements service in those branch offices. Now with the option of online appointments, renewing our tabs and our driver's license in some cases online, but not everyone has access to the internet. And not everyone is able to facilitate the use of a website, and not everyone is comfortable utilizing online services with their debit or credit card information. So I know it is imperative that we also look at line management in those branch offices. Having an appointment is a great first step, but we need to better serve those customers that walk in without an appointment. And we need to make sure that we have a clerk available to assist those customers when they come in as well. Kiosks at our local Myers and Kroger is a great first step, but there are many communities that don't have a Kroger or a Myers anywhere near them. So we need to look at other options as well, with an eye towards customer service. With the auto dealers and the RV dealers and the boats, we need to remember that they are also our customers, not just the people that walk into the branch offices, but those businesses that sell cars, trucks, RVs, and boats. And we need to make sure we're keeping them in mind as well.
Thanks very much, Mr. Edevbie.
When I became Deputy Secretary of State, I jumped at the opportunity to get involved with the other side of the house that I like to say, being involved in those services. Now, I have traveled to over 90 branches in our state. I've met most of our employees, 1,500 employees, one-on-one. And typically when I come to a branch, what I do is I tell the branch manager I'm coming ahead of time, but I come around the door and I observe what's happening. And one of the things that I've realized is that we don't always treat people who are coming in without an appointment the best way. And so we're now instituting comprehensive customer service training across all of our branches so that people are treated respectfully every single corner of it. We also need to work on our appointment system. Right now, and it's been this place for a while, most people who come into our branches, 60% of the people who come into branches make an appointment, 40% walk in. We've got to make that number go up to 80% because it will make it easier for people to walk in and be treated and get served very quickly. So we have to make that appointment system a lot more accessible by having a 1-800 number where you can call, put in your zip code, and get that appointment time to come up to you. Number 3, commercial customers. Everyone has to be treated the same. The system of just dropping off customer records and waiting for the Secretary of State's office to respond to you hasn't worked too well. So we have to have a dedicated line of staffer helping commercial customers, RV dealers, auto dealers to be serviced well so that we're ultimately helping everyone get what they need. There's a lot that has to be done, but we have a great process right now of getting people in and out of the branches in 30 minutes or less. About 60% of our services are available online. I help lead the way to put online title transfer online, and we can do more, but we have a great foundation right now.
Thanks very much, Mr. Hollier.
Nobody likes going to the DMV, right? Hard stop. Nobody likes it. Nobody's ever liked it. In every state, no one likes it. All we can do is trying to get a little bit better, right? The days of sitting at the Secretary of State's office for 3 hours are gone, thank God. But every minute you spend in there is a minute you aren't spending doing something else. We've got to do a way better job of addressing that. And the way we do that is by continuing to work with you and say, hey, how do we get a little bit tighter on that, right? Making sure that everyone has an ID from little kids all the way to seniors. My grandmother's 102 years old. When she stopped driving, she didn't get a new license. And then all of a sudden, Real ID came and they were like, oh, no, you need to have valid ID. You need to have these things. And she's like, yeah, I don't drive. But it expired because she's old, right? And so we've got to make sure that we educate folks very clearly about what a valid ID looks like, how we get there, and to think about some of the other things that the Secretary of State does, right? How many of you have ever done any property stuff and you had to go get a notary? All of that done by the Secretary of State, right? Like we live in a world where we have got to get to a place where you can do a lot more of these things online. Michigan is the leader in mortgages. So you talk about Rocket, you talk about UWM, all of those folks do every single part of that transaction online, except when you go to close because you have to go meet with the notary. We talk about deed fraud and all these scams, rent to own and things like that. as a Secretary of State, I'm really committed to making sure that you feel comfortable that documents are happening appropriately and safely. Like you shouldn't have to pay for LifeLock and all these other kind of weird things that are promising they're going to protect your identity, because the Secretary of State should be playing a bigger role in that, right? Like if we're the ones that issue your license and your ID, we should be playing a role in helping to make sure that those things continue to be secure. And the best way for us to do that is to make them more secure. We're also going to have to do things to make things a little bit more convenient, right? So on my phone, I have my credit card and my Lowe's card and all those other kind of things. Some states allow you to do your license that way, right? Like there are some states where you can sign petitions electronically. So we're talking about the state of New Mexico, right? Like if you want to get your congresswoman or the governor, you can do those things online. They automatically check them. We have a lot of things to do.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience? Ma'am. You use the mic so people on Zoom can hear you too.
Good afternoon, or is it morning still? Good morning. My name is Janice Townsend. I'm also treasurer for Board of Saline Community Schools, Board of Education. One of the things that I have been looking at is the gap, the youth gap in voting. So we have students that get registered, but they don't cast votes. And I wanted to know your thoughts on how will if you're elected, how you would work with local school districts to change the messaging on the importance of voting. I remember going to Michigan State 1992 and casting my first vote for the president at that time. And it was very exciting. The information was out there, but a lot of our students now are not in college or they have alternative education paths. What can you do or what will you do to improve the voting gap and the success rate for young people to actually vote?
Thank you very much, Mr. Edevbie. You answer first.
Well, thank you for that question. Thank you for the service to your students. We have committed to doing a lot of innovations. Pre-registration, for example. 16 and 17-year-olds in the state now can pre-register to vote so that when they turn 18, their registration is current, they have their voter registration card, and they can start to be involved in our civic process. However, it's important to realize that for young voters and people who are just starting out in voting, the process can be a little scary. So we have to demystify it. And one of the things that we've done already is have mock elections. We go to different high schools all across the state, and we have an election where we appoint a secretary of state, a local clerk. People are going to count the ballots, and sometimes we do it on fun subjects like waffles or pancakes or stuff like that to just make it a little fun and also just teach them about the process. But I want to take it a step further. The thing where they have a trailer that teaches students about the trades in high school. I want to have a similar trailer that teaches people about elections so that they can experience what it's like to fill out a ballot and how to do it correctly, what offices are on the ballot, so that there's not as much of this mysteriousness to elections and that they come into it prepared to mark their ballots, to cast their votes, and ultimately to be a part of our electoral system. Because the more people who are actually involved and educated and informed, the better. An informed voter is a dangerous thing for a republic.
Wow.
Not voting is a choice. And young people don't vote, and it's not because they don't know that elections are coming or all those kind of things. It's because we haven't made it relevant enough in their lives. And so when you start talking about what does the Secretary of State have to do, we have to make it relevant, right? Like we have to go and show them the difference between communities that vote and people who don't vote, right? So there is a reason that seniors are preferenced in every electoral thing. It's because they vote, right? It's not because people don't like 18-year-olds. It's not because people don't like children. It's because elections are determined by the people who show up. And the better we're able to communicate that to young people, the more they're able to participate. It's going to them and talking about the things that are relevant, like student loans, like that next job, like all of those things as they come of age, right? Like I remember those moments. We've also done a lot of things to make it easier. So unlike you, I wasn't able to vote my first election here in Michigan because I turned 18 in college. I registered to vote before I went home, before I left, but My first election at the time, you could not vote absentee because I didn't register in person because I wasn't 18 yet. Now, we have since changed that law and have done a number of things to make it easier for folks to vote, but we have to do everything we can to make it relevant. And that fundamentally goes to how do we go and engage with young people? How are we talking to them about the issues that matter to them? How are we supporting young candidates? How are we supporting young people in office and doing all of that work? And the more that we are committed to doing that work with young people and engaging with them and listening, I say again, listening, the more likely they're going to participate in this process, because too often we say to young people, hey, come with me and I'm going to tell you what to do. And they're like, you just need to do your time. And they're like, all right, well, when it's my time, maybe I'll participate. That's not the right answer. And if we want them to participate in real and meaningful ways, we have to listen to them and allow them to take the lead on some of these issues, recognizing that that's the only way they're going to participate.
Ms. Byrum.
Thank you. So some of the work that I've done as county clerk is working with the East Lansing City Clerk to make sure that we are reaching out to those college students on campus. Boudre in Ann Arbor does an amazing job on campus, and as much as it pains me that U of M is doing a better job than MSU, I recognize that. And I have been trying to duplicate that, quite frankly. I've been in the schools encouraging young people to register to vote. And now with pre-registration, that is almost taken care of. But encouraging them to participate in elections at the school, whether it's, I do favorite flavor of ice cream myself, but to vote on the favorite flavor of ice cream and talk to them about the importance of voting and actually having your voice heard. I think with the permanent ballot list, that is a step in the right direction, right? So now you can apply to be and request to be on that permanent ballot list. So you will get a ballot mailed to you for every election. The difficulty is not everyone checks their mail regularly. Right? So we have to remind people to check their mail and get those ballots back to their local clerk before polls close. But I think it's imperative that we talk to trades, we talk to community colleges, we talk to the colleges, we definitely talk to the high schools, but we should be talking to those elementary school students too, to start to plant the seed. I was fortunate. My mom took me to the ballot when I was young, and I voted with her. I did the same for my children because I want my children to exercise their right to vote as well. So I think it's important that we continue to talk about the importance of registering to vote and to exercising one's right to vote.
Thank you so much. So we've now reached the end of the time period for questions. I'd like to give each candidate, this time I actually remembered, 2 minutes to sum up. And I think Mr. Edevbie, you are first.
I want to thank everybody for coming here today. This election is ultimately a choice, and it comes at a time where our democracy is under threat. And I have firsthand experience with those threats. The Trump administration a few months ago issued an executive order that would have forced every single clerk to reprogram all their election machines across the country and would have made every single election official subservient to him. I confronted the White House. We had a meeting with deputy secretaries of state from across the country, secretaries of state, and I asked them very specific questions, and they couldn't answer one of them. So I worked with our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, to get a multi-state lawsuit ready that we filed to get an injunction, and we stopped that executive order in its tracks. But listen, this is not the end of the road. We've got more challenges ahead. That's what this election is about. 2 days into the next Secretary of State's term, the Congress is going to take office. And I think everybody here knows that the Trump administration and those MAGA Republicans are going to do everything they can to stop those Democrats from taking their seats. We have to be ready. We have to be ready. Because it's not about going on MSNBC and screaming and shouting. It's not about going on social media and talking about how much of a fighter we are. I mean, look, you got Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're all talking about fighting. There isn't a Democrat that isn't talking about fighting right now. But what does it actually mean? What does fighting actually mean? It means that we are smart, we have the knowledge, the judgment, and the experience to actually fight back. The next Secretary of State cannot experience on-the-job training. They've got to be ready on day one. The office that I want to hold is 5 feet away from my office. I'm ready to do this job.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hollier.
Thanks for taking some time. This Saturday morning, it's homecoming weekend. There are 100 places that you could be at that are more fun to be here. But I'm glad that you're sharing this time with us, right? The next Secretary of State is going to be tasked with making sure that people participate in our elections, that you feel like they are moving safely and securely, which, spoiler, they are safe and secure. Safer than they've ever been, more secure than they've ever been. But every day you wake up, you watch the news, and someone is telling you to be more afraid of the next thing than the last thing. And that's not what you should get from your government. It's not what you should get from Democrats. You should be hearing from us that we are going to build something better, that we are going to make sure that more people are able to participate, that it's quicker and easier for you to get your license, that everybody in this state has an ID, that when you go on the internet, when you go on your ballot box, you can see where people got their money from. You can see what they are committed to doing, that you can get good information. And that's what the Secretary of State should be doing. You should be expected to have somebody you trust. And, you know, I'm an Ivy League educated paratrooper with 2 little kids who lives in the neighborhood I was born and raised in. I think who people are matters, especially as you start saying, hey, this is somebody that's going to represent me. This is somebody that's going to take care of me. And so many of us have been confronted with the question of, are we going to have a democracy? Are we going to have a nation? And the answer to all of those things is absolutely yes, because we are going to make sure that we elect people in Michigan who are going to count every vote, who are going to make sure that you're able to participate, who are going to make sure that your voice is heard and that we live in a better space. And that's what you should be expecting from your Secretary of State. It's what you're going to get from me, somebody who has a strong commitment and a track record of getting things done, both as a state legislator, as one of the youngest members of the governor's cabinet, and somebody who understands just how important it is to take care of our elections, because that's what our country is. You know, I raised my right hand and said, hey, send me. And I'm asking you to send me to do one more thing. Again, so it's Adam Hollier, first name Adam, last name looks like Hollier, sounds like Hollier. And you'll have to come to the Democratic Convention in April to vote for me. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Barb.
So thank you, Washtenaw Dems, for putting this panel together. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Barb Byrum, and again, I am running for Secretary of State because Michigan needs a secretary who's ready, willing, and able to defend our democracy. I have been doing that work for over 12 years. I know elections forwards and backwards, which is why I have been endorsed by over 30 county and local clerks, including your county clerk, Lawrence Kestenbaum. It's why I've been endorsed by numerous former and current legislators, including former State Representative Pam Burns and current Senator Jeff Irwin. I am ready, willing, and able to stand up, speak out in defending the integrity of our elections. I have run tough elections, and I have won tough elections, and I am best suited to win in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's a chance to applaud. Thank you so much for taking the time from your schedules to be with us today. We now are going to listen to a brief presentation by Carrie Reingans, state representative from this county, who's going to talk about the state of the state budget. It's been quite a ride with that. Representative Reingans, would you please unmute yourself? I believe she's in Lansing.
No, I'm not.
You're not? Okay, sorry.
No. Eli, how much time do I have?
You have 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, I am actually at Abbott Elementary School. You can probably see behind me. It's the biggest fundraiser of the year for my kiddos' school here at Abbott Elementary in the west side of Ann Arbor. And so since my husband is coordinating all the volunteers, I get to be on mom duty. So thank you all so much for being flexible and letting me join via Zoom instead of driving across football traffic to get there to be with you in person for 15 minutes. I thought I might actually be in Lansing today, but thankfully we did pass a heavily bipartisan budget late Thursday night, early Thursday or Friday morning, just yesterday, I guess that would be. The final budget was approved around 4:15 a.m. and all the bills that went along with it, approving some revenue increases and shifting our gas tax to be fully going toward roads. I think folks are aware that the negotiations this year were unlike any other in the past few decades here in Michigan. As you're all very well aware, as active Democrats, we have a divided government. Our governor obviously is a Democrat. Senate is still controlled by Democrats, and Winnie Brinks, as the Senate Majority Leader, is in her third year, along with Senator Anthony, negotiating the budget. We have two senators in Washtenaw County, Senator Schenck and Senator Irwin, who are now in their third year negotiating various budgets for various departments. So they really know what they're doing. They know their budgets inside and out. The difference this term is Matt Hall is the Speaker of the House. He is a Republican. He is in his third term as a legislator in Michigan, and he was the minority leader last year, and this year he's the Speaker. And he is a control freak. This man did not let his committee chairs negotiate the budget for their committees, for their budgets that they oversee. So Sue and Jeff's counterparts, they actually didn't really know their budget inside and out the way Sue and Jeff did. And Matt Hall didn't let them. So he published a budget in March and forced every House Republican vote for it. That completely multiple departments, including the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. And at that time, I was very worried that they would force this through and close the government down and hold us all hostage and completely defund those departments until Democrats gave in. But as you're seeing at the national level and here in Michigan, Democrats are fighting back. Thanks to the efforts that you all, each and every one of you, are putting in to keep our feet to the fire and keep us fighting for you. Thank you for doing that and keep doing that. So after that BS budget passed in March, then at the federal level, we had one big bullshit bill, as I call it. Apologies to everybody who doesn't like it, but that's what it is. And that bill that
Nope. I'll start the. We'll give her 30 seconds to get back on. Put the shoe lights on. And I'll use this time productively. The next part of the meeting is going to be speakers who are running for office in Chelsea.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, as you can see, I'm outside. So spotty service, I guess. But as I was saying, the big bullshit bill actually cost cost $1 billion from our state budget. So we had to figure out what we were going to do about that hole in our state budget. And the governor was very adamant about making sure that we had a roads plan as part of the budget. So she was saying we need to make some cuts. We need to make some revenue adjustments in order to include a roads plan. So in the state house, we had a team of Democratic representatives introduce a bunch of bills that would have raised revenue, totaling $6 billion, which is not how much we needed to raise roads. But we thought that we would be able to pick from that and that Republicans would be reasonable and spread around the revenue increases that we were going to need to make in order to fund our state budget and have a roads plan. The Republicans doubled down and they decided that we would force all the revenue on basically just one revenue increase, which was actually on the cannabis industry here in Michigan, which is the most successful cannabis industry in the whole country. Since that is the only revenue they were willing to increase, they shifted money from gas tax, which took some money from schools. They also were willing to take away money from corporate incentives, which actually most Democrats were okay with as well. So shifting those funds together and making a roads plan of about $1.8 billion, which will be using a new formula that includes the biggest investment in transit ever that we were able to make, in part because Jason Morgan, one of the state reps from Washtenaw County, was really in the room helping demand that. We also had other House Democrats in a room with Senate Democrats and the governor's team demanding that we protect our kids, we protect patients in Michigan, and we protect low-income families as much as we possibly could, knowing the terrible cuts coming down from the big BS bill. So thankfully, with their forces combined, they really held strong as a united front. And in the end, Matt Hall couldn't get every single one of his Republican caucus members in the House to vote for the budget. So they did need Democratic votes in the House. But as it turns out, him being a control freak really backfired. And when his individual committee chairs got in the room last weekend to try to do final negotiations, they didn't know their budget. And Matt Hall and the House Republicans got pretty steamrolled. And they ended up taking out a lot of the things that they were proud of putting in these various budgets that were discriminating against trans kids. They were trying to force local governments to do unfunded cooperation with ICE. And Democrats on both sides of the chamber, both sides of the Capitol, along with the governor's team, held strong and said, absolutely not. Will you target our kids? Will you target our communities? Will you force us to do unfunded work for the federal government? So thankfully, that ended up being, I think, the budget was a lot better than I was expecting because of the work that Democrats did, really. So thank you all for your work, keeping our feet to the fire. There's some stuff in there that I still don't love. There's definitely stuff in there that not all Democrats love. If you ask Senator Irwin, if he's in the room, he definitely has been very clear about some of the harmful impacts that the Republicans not budging on that marijuana tax being the only revenue. That is gonna have an impact in our cannabis industry in Michigan, and it may end up not raising as much revenue as forecasted, which kind of funnily enough is estimated to be $420 million, just in case you need a giggle. So I know we have a few more minutes of my time. I'm happy to answer questions, or I can talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of what's in that budget. I don't know, Eli, what you want to do.
Thank you, Carrie. Well, let me ask in the audience if anyone has questions of you. Are there any questions of Representative Reingans? Teresa, actually, good to.
Well,
Sure, Mike. Jeff, could you pass the mic?
Hey,
Thank you.
hey, Carrie, thanks for being here. So I was going to ask how that fall got. He was so impossible. I mean, he was a complete solid rock of idiocy. And so I was going to ask you how he got moved, but it sounds like, as you said, like it was, he just sabotaged himself, right? So you're saying that his Republican leaders didn't know it was in the budget, and when they found out his proposed budget, when they found out what was in it, they were appalled? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, actually, the House of Representatives passed this like crappy budget in March, and then they passed a budget that cut $5 billion from the state in August, and every single House Republican voted for that, and that's where we got the extreme cuts of our schools. We got extreme cuts, all arts and culture funding, for example. But that was changed in final negotiations because I think he realized he needed to let his committee chairs do the negotiating, and they didn't know their budgets because he hadn't let them get into their budgets and really understand them. And I think it's not just that they got steamrolled, it's that Democrats stayed strong. The Democrats in the Senate and the Democrats in the House and the governor's team, we were a united front on saying no attacks on our kids. Do not attack our kids, especially our trans kids in schools. Do not attack our efforts to increase inclusion in our governmental services. I mean, government's here to serve all of us. So we got a united front that really overwhelmed them, I think. So it wasn't just that Matt Hall rolled over, it was that we rolled them over. And of course, there's still problems in this budget. But for me personally, I voted yes because we were able to actually work together across chambers and with the governor's team to make sure that we got the worst cuts and the worst attacks out of this budget. I am a little fearful about the next budget process. Now that Matt Hall's going to look around and realize, I think he's going to be more of a jerk next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank all of you guys. You guys, this is why we vote. Democrats, thank you so much for all of that work. I know it was incredibly stressful, and I know you got barely any sleep. So thanks.
And one thing I want folks to be aware of is during the fragile budget negotiations of the last week and a half, the Republicans started realizing how bad the big bullshit bill is for our state. They didn't quite realize it before because they were buying the talking points. And once they saw the numbers on the paper, I think they started shaking in their boots, and they know this is going to be very bad for them because our projections in the next couple of years are even worse for our state. And I think that they didn't know how bad it was going to be. And this is the secret that, is not allowed to be said until after negotiations, but they now realize that they're on the wrong side of a lot of issues, and there's harm going to come to our state because of what they support and what they have been supporting. And we need to make sure that we communicate that regularly and clearly to the voters of Michigan. And we need to be ready to ensure that the will of the people in 2026 is actually enforced. So what the Secretary of State candidates were saying earlier, we need to make sure that the seats we flip in the 10th congressional district, the 7th, maintaining our holds in the 8th, we need to make sure that our work as Democrats hold strong, because I think a reckoning is coming for these Republicans.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's interesting that like in the US House, they didn't know what they were signing either, but they just went ahead with it. I'm really glad you guys rolled them. Congratulations and thank you.
Well,
thank you.
I will say this process was terrible because normally we do know what's in our budgets for each department in like May. The Senate passes budgets, the House passes budgets. We can see what's in there. And the only thing that's unknown at the end is like some last minute earmarks and maybe last minute changes. So by the time we get our budget in June, usually, having a few hours to look at those last minute changes, still not great, but at least it's so few changes that we can understand it. This time, Matt Hall didn't agree to what was in the final budget until literally hours before we had to vote on the whole entire thing. It wasn't until I actually could see the budget document, and I couldn't just scroll and read it. I had to use Control Find to look at specific things to see if they were in there. That is no way to govern. And this is only because Matt Hall refused to actually do his damn job the whole entire time. He is a terrible governing leader. Terrible.
Yeah, that's interesting. We got some good stories to tell, Janice and Erica. We got some really ripe stories to tell for the next cycle. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you all. And thank you all for being engaged Democrats. We need you. Keep up the good work.
Okay. So the next part of the meeting, we are going to hear from candidates for nonpartisan positions from Chelsea, Milan, and Saline in that order. And to determine exactly how much time each of you will have, I'd like for a show of hands, how many nonpartisan candidates are in the room who would like to speak? 5, 7, 8. Okay. All right, so that leads to 4 minutes per candidate. And once again, we have timekeeper who will let you know with the red card when the 4 minutes are up. So what I'd like to have you do is, I think we'll still be at 4 minutes. I'd like to have you come up here. You'll speak from this mic, and we have these fancy cards so everyone will know who you are. And especially, I know you're not speaking so much to this room, you're speaking to the video audience. So usually for candidate panels, we get several hundred viewers for each of the videos. And this is where you will meet your audience. And they'll tell by the card that it's you. And you can just, if you want to, just put it on the desk in front of you. And that's the video. So Greta Codrington, who is a fellow member of the Washington Dems Programs Committee, will be the MC for this part of the operation. Thank you, Greta. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Eli. Again, my name is Loretta Codrington, and I am a part of the Programs Committee for the Washington County Democratic Party. I'm really glad to be there. As Eli mentioned, we have some name tags for you guys. So I'm going to call up Kate Henson if she's here. Kate is a candidate for Chelsea Mayor. Thank you for being with us, Kate. Right here. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you all. Am I good to go?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. For me, leadership has never been about a title. It has always been about showing up, rolling up my sleeves, and working alongside others to make Chelsea the best that it can be. I will say my journey started during COVID. It's always been my core beliefs to be a helper. And wherever help is needed, I was there. And I took that into my career where I was an organizational development consultant. And people were only calling you because something was wrong and you were showing up. And I loved that for about 20 years. And then COVID hit. And then I'm in my basement with my first grader on Zoom, my 6-month-old in my arms, doing my best to keep our business going. And every day I was realizing more and more that I was also relying on the teacher that was on Zoom with my first grader because she was showing up every single day and not only giving my kiddo some semblance of normalcy, but the 24 other kids in the class and then myself. And I couldn't just continue to sit in my basement and be scared because I knew that she was at home with her own kids, also being scared but showing up. So I decided to take my first step and become a substitute teacher, not because it was easy, but because it was the right thing to do. And it was my time in the schools and the relationships that I built that I realized that the school board elections were coming up. We were having a big turnover, and I knew that that was the next step for me. So for the time that I was on the school board, I spent 2 of those years as president, and it's one of the most meaningful roles I've ever held. I can't say enough things about how wonderful it is to step up and do that. So if you're thinking about it, please do. We worked hard to strengthen our nationally recognized school, support our teachers and staff, and make sure that every student had the opportunity to succeed. It taught me how to balance making tough decisions with compassion and how to keep our kids and families at the heart of every decision. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we did, including approving policies to support and protect our LGBTQ+ staff and students. My service extends to city government. I was fortunate enough to chair the city strategic planning group, where I worked with our then brand new police chief to create the department's first ever strategic plan. That was truly a collaboration. We were able to take a look forward, set goals, and ensure that public safety and service met the needs for our community today and tomorrow. I was also invited to be part of the key state meetings. They were started by Mayor Pacheco. Over a year, we had those meetings, and we came together with the library, the hospitals, the schools, community mental health, the library, and our senior center, and we were able to pilot a community social worker position, which has been incredibly successful. I'd love to share more about that later because I think that that's one thing that Chelsea can help share for other communities. So it's been powerful. Most recently, I have been honored to serve as an appointed member of the Chelsea City Council, where I've spent the last 5 months working hard on behalf of residents, businesses, and community partners. Being entrusted with this role has both been humbling and energizing, and only fueled my commitment to run for mayor. So why am I running for mayor? Chelsea is truly a special place. For our size, we have unparalleled services, our nationally ranked school district, which I'll tell all the time, and thriving local businesses, vibrant arts, recreation, and culture scene. Recently, we have experienced some incredible changes, though. Some of them you can see, like Main Street Park Alliance, road improvements, and our rebuilding of Timbertown. And there are some that you don't, like our operationalized processes within the city, making work life better for our city staff. We've upgraded IT, we've standardized HR processes, and now our police department has its first ever strategic plan. Most importantly, we have a community where neighbors show up for one another, and that is worth protecting and building upon. Because Chelsea didn't magically become the special place it is today, I want to honor those who came before me in this role, serve the people of Chelsea with dedication today, and ensure that our city remains strong for the generations, including my daughters who will follow. My top priorities are clear. I want to tackle affordability and accessibility. This ranges from housing to utilities to city services, strengthen collaboration across the city council itself. As a team, we need to be strong with our regional and state partners, and most importantly, with our residents. And I would also like to ensure that Chelsea, as we grow, that we're doing it thoughtfully. We need to balance progress with the character and connectedness that makes us unique. Thank you so much.
Okay, so next we're going to call up the Chelsea candidates for city council. There won't be questions, so I'm sorry if that seems odd, but the first person we're calling up, and this is in name order, is Sam Angus. Are you here? Sam? Sam's not here. Okay. Then Tony Inanelli. Okay. All right. So Tony's here. He's up on the way up. Thank you, Tony, for being here.
Thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Washington Dems. Thanks, Representative Reigans. Thank you also to the Secretary of State candidates. It's really great to hear from them. It's going to be a really tough decision because those are all three outstanding candidates. I really have to say them. I'm Tony Iannelli. I'm running for re-election for Chelsea City Council. I've served 2 terms. I currently serve as the Mayor Pro Tem as well. I also am the chairman of the Western Washtenaw County Recycling Authority, council liaison to the Planning Commission, the Zero Waste Coalition. I've previously been on the Human Rights Commission as well as a program called Seriously. Been with my 8 years in council, we adopted our master plan back in 2019. We're currently revising that. Some of the work I've been doing with the Planning Commission here, that's going to be voted on here in 2025. Through that time also, we went through the appropriation of the county mental health millage for introducing our new community social workers. It's been a great resource that we've added to the community thanks to that millage. Also involved with the B2B Trailhead, the Trail Town designation, and the 425 agreement with Lima Township, with expanding city limits and adding some, working with developers on some additional development to get more kids in our schools. Zoning ordinance revisions, looking at ways that we can increase some of the density within the city limits. Since we have outgrown out to the outer edges, we don't really have any more room to go out anymore. We have to infill where we can and looking for those opportunity zones through some of the rezoning that we've been doing, as well as revitalizing some old parts of the town. We've been able to, we've took an eyesore in the middle of town with some resources that the community coming together and with the city working together, creating the new Main Street Park in Chelsea. I'd suggest you find out more about it. If you haven't already, it's an amazing project that we're so excited to see after seeing this large former industrial site right in the middle of town sit idle for way too long. And then, of course, the big thing is housing and traffic and public safety. We want more housing. We need affordable housing. We want to take a look at every opportunity that we might have to do that, as far as adding additional housing responsibly and taking into consideration the other things that are going to be involved with that growth: the increase of traffic, the increase of volume, increased pedestrian traffic, public safety risks. And weighing all those out, working with the stakeholders in the community to make those things come together. And then looking at other opportunities that we have within the city. In addition to this new park coming, there's a group that's actively working on an aquatic center as a community center. Mr. Angus, who's also running, is also working to help bring back our art center and utilizing some idle space within the community to do that. So it's all about growth, responsible growth, and obviously mitigating the extreme increased costs that we're facing right now and how we can minimize that impact on it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, next we have William O'Reilly. Are you here? Okay, awesome. Getting better at this, but not quick. Okay, here we go.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Loretta, it's been great working with you to make this happen, so appreciate it. I'll start by saying I go by Bill O'Reilly and I am no relation to the jerk on TV. Far from it. I use my genealogy background to make sure we're not related. However, there is somebody I'm related to that I'm not the first family member to run for office in Washtenaw County. Way back when, I was just finishing my undergrad at Eastern when I volunteered full-time on my sister Kathleen O'Reilly's campaign for Congress in 1980. She ran against an incumbent Republican. We put up a great fight, came close, but unfortunately it was the year of the Reagan landslide, so that didn't happen. But my wife Becky and I moved to Chelsea over 10 years ago. I have Washtenaw County roots dating back to the 1830s. I'm very, very proud father of 3 remarkable young women. And while I'm very liberal and long supporter of the Democratic Party, I worked with the Harris Walls campaign last fall, curing ballots. That was a rewarding thing to make sure that none of them fell through the cracks there. And however, as pointed out, Chelsea runs on a nonpartisan basis. It's very clear in our city charter that is the way it will operate it. And so I will leave my ideologies at the door. I will focus instead on using my moral compass and the focus on helping the people, all the people of Chelsea and our community. And it is a remarkable community. I can't be more sincere in saying not a week passes where I tell others or say to myself about Chelsea, damn, I love living here. It also is a place where people step forward. My fellow candidates are perfect examples of people who step forward. As to why I'm doing it, the response I always give is, why not? Isn't that what committed citizens do? And I'm here to help others. Like I said, it's been a great community and you only want to give back. It didn't start in Chelsea. Before moving to Chelsea from Dearborn, I was president of both the PTA at my daughter's middle school and then at their high school. I was head of the neighborhood association. I've been actively involved all along. I used to go regularly to Channel 56 and answer the phones and so forth. Anyway, I hit the ground running when I got to Chelsea. I've been on the board of the Chelsea Area Historical Society almost from the beginning. It helps that the museum is literally behind my house. I'm back again as president of that association. I also was on the DDA, the Chelsea DDA, for many years. When I stepped down a few years back, I was vice president of that. Gave me a lot of insights to how city government works. I've also served the last 5.5 years as the executive director for the Chelsea Senior Center. Retired from there last year. That was a culmination of a more than 4-decade career in management and working with teams. The Chelsea Senior Center, if you don't know already, is a remarkable organization. It serves more than 50 communities. That is, we have members from 50 different communities throughout Washtenaw County. There really are that many out there. It's a 1,400 member organization. I was very proud to lead the team there. We provided over 200 activities per month, a Meals on Wheels program. And it wasn't just our members, it was to many seniors in the community. One of the many things I'm proud of, I mentioned my sister Kathleen earlier, her husband, Ruben, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He suffered from a program, a disease similar to Parkinson's. And we saw, the family saw the impact it was having on her. Her health was going down because of caregiving she was doing. So one of the first things I did at the Chelsea Senior Center was lead a thing called Ease the Day. We developed that and it provides respite care for those seniors during the day, but the real focus is the caregivers, the family members who are dealing with those people. The other candidates have talked about the things that are really happening here in Chelsea, and we're going to continue this. So I appreciate your support and everything you're doing in the community. Let's keep it going.
Okay, so those are the candidates for Chelsea. Now we're going to there's one. Oh, there's one more?
Hi, I'm Felix Stock.
What's your name?
Felix Stock.
Oh, okay, we thought, okay, so you made it. Oh, come on up. Sorry. Yeah, I'm happy.
If you got a note from someone who couldn't make it, it probably couldn't stand.
Oh. Okay, well, thank you for making it. I'm sorry, again, I should have had this ready for you, but come on in. I'm taking up your time. Gonna be perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Here I am.
There you go. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Felix Stump, and I'm running for Chelsea City Council. I grew up in a very small town in Ohio. In college in Ohio, met my wife, Aubrey, and she's from Michigan. Her family's from Detroit area. After graduating, we moved to Chicago and then ultimately to the DC area for her to go to graduate school. And we made a life there. For over 20 years, we kind of found within the Beltway the most Midwestern small town environment we could, Main Street and all. And it felt like towns like Chelsea and Dexter, where her parents lived. We'd visit Chelsea and the surrounding area every 2 or 3 times a year for close to 20 years, visiting her family. And we even had a rehearsal dinner when we got married in 2002 at the Common Grill in Chelsea. Over 4 years ago, when the pandemic made both of our work remote permanently, we had that opportunity to make the move we kind of long dreamed about, back to Chelsea, back to this area, and to be closer to her parents. Or we had 2 young kids who get to see their grandma and grandpa now all the time. It's lovely. we were able to get into town just before our oldest started kindergarten at North Creek Elementary, and we love living right downtown. For over 2 decades, I have worked for a federal government contractor called Maximus Federal Services, and it's a contractor that focuses on civilian health and human service programs. Much of that time I spent supporting a program called the Ticket to Work program under the Social Security Administration, which is a jobs program for people with disabilities. In that role, I ultimately led as project director. I managed everything from outreach, capacity building for non-government organizations, an annual budget of over $13 million, and a staff of about 120 people. I've led human resources and risk management efforts for a U.S. Department of Education contract and helped launch Medicaid enrollment programs and child support enforcement projects for the states of Texas and Hawaii. As a certified project management professional for over 10 years, I know how to lead teams, manage complex projects, and most importantly, build consensus. I'm proud of my ability to listen closely, reframe different perspectives so that others can relate, and help guide groups to decisions where everyone feels heard and respected. I'm running for Chelsea City Council because I care deeply about the community, and I want to help shape its future in a way that honors both our shared values and our potential. The last few years have shown at the national level, certainly, and local, just how fragile our democracy is. And I think at first, my instinct and the easy path would be to take advantage of my privilege, Frank, to, my life hasn't been dramatically impacted yet. And there's kind of an instinct to hunker down, hold tight what's mine, what's good, and then kind of try to ignore all the noise. And that isn't fair. There are many members of our community that are lesser fortunate that are impacted, and I think each of us need to do what we can. And for me, that's at the local level. Chelsea is growing, and with that growth comes the responsibility to make thoughtful, forward-looking decisions. I support the progress our city's made in recent years, from the Main Street Park Alliance to our Ordinance 88 protecting undocumented citizens. And I look forward to helping see Chelsea into the future. Thanks very much.
Okay, so that is actually the end of the Chelsea candidates, and we thank you guys all for being here. Now we have Jesse, Robert, and I. Are you here? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Jesse's our only candidate for Milan City Council. No competition.
So much. Hello, everyone. I'm from Milan. You guys may have heard of it. We're a little bit south of here. I'm not nervous and I'm not dealing with a head cold, so please bear with me. My name's Jesse Nye. I grew up in Milan. My wife grew up in Milan. We have a 3-year-old daughter that is absolutely loving her second year in preschool and kindergarten, going to the same school that we went to as kids. It's incredible to see. I'm in a very unique position here as the only candidate here representing Milan, but also probably the only one here that is not worried if I win this spot or not. Every candidate that is running for Milan City Council this year is a fantastic candidate. We have been, let me back up. I was on City Council for 4 years. That was my first time up there, and then COVID hit. So I got a crash course into Zoom meetings and how to actually help out with the city government while in quarantine and things like that. We took creative and drastic, some chances, some predictions. We survived the pandemic, but we came out thriving. We have an absolutely amazing downtown. Our DDA is doing an incredible job. Our Parks and Rec just put in a brand new play structure. everywhere that you look in Milan right now, we are going above and beyond where we've been lacking for decades. Me being up there is not going to change that. Any of these new candidates that will get this spot in November will not change that. What is important to remember is that all the staff, all of the people behind the scenes, people like Jeff Irwin, people like Felicia Rayback, people like Reggie Miller, the folks like that we need to utilize in Chelsea and Saline and anywhere, these people are here to help us. We saw these incredible candidates that were here, took the time to make sure that we understood who they were. It's my job as elected and their job as elected to make sure that we are reaching out and we are bringing all those resources back to our community. So the good news today is that Milan is in great shape. I encourage you all to come down every weekend. I live on First Street, so I'm about 2-3 houses away from downtown. Music, festivals, all sorts of great stuff. So please, please, please come and visit us. We've been waiting to have a proper grand opening for the rest of our community for a very long time, and I feel like we're ready for that. On a personal note, I grew up working with my grandfather, my father, my brother at Nye Family Feeder Home that serves our local community. My wife and I took a very big emotional risk with a 1-year-old coming out of COVID and opened up Harbor Cremation Services. It's located in Saline. We're the only crematory that operates in Washtenaw County. So we want to make sure, from Grandpa starting the funeral home, Dad doing everything he can to give back to the community. My brother now manages, and then now my wife and I are able to help out with cremations. That it's a unique role, just like these city council spots and the mayor spots. But the one thing that you do learn in that line of work is to listen. Regardless of political orientation, regardless of whether you agree or whether you disagree, a lot of times people just need to be heard. And that's where I feel like a lot of the anger, a lot of the frustration that we see is that people aren't having those honest conversations. So to end, and thank you again, everyone, but please do what you can to make a difference. Please listen to each other. Please try to find a way to move forward together. Thank you.
Okay, if I misspoke about Milan, it was not on purpose. Anyway, we do have another candidate for Milan Library, Michelle Walters. Are you here? Okay.
And we do have another library. Yes, we already worked on it. To be awesome. Well, good morning still. Yeah, for another 8 minutes. And I'm going to make this quick so that we can all get to the game for those of you who want to watch the game. Hello, my name is Michelle Walters, and I am running for the Milan Library Board. I am really excited to do this. I have been an avid involved person my entire life. I was actually on the drive up thinking to myself, when did I start volunteering? When did I start doing things for my community? And I will say, I don't remember because it was that far back. My family's always been involved where we've been. I was born and raised actually in the Sandhills of Nebraska. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at, in a little village called Loretto. And we got on the map in 1989. So that was exciting. And I was a part of that 100-year celebration and getting on the map in that regard, riding our bikes around our 4-block community in the parade. So a little bit about myself though now. I am a resident of Milan, not very far from downtown either, which is wonderful. I love being able to walk to our downtown. I am a social worker. I went to the University of Michigan many, many years ago. I won't say when, but my husband and I actually went to high school together in Iowa because I moved to Iowa when I was 13. And I went to grad school here in my early 20s. And then we went back to Iowa to help care for family. But we always felt like Michigan was our home. And I will say we have zero regrets for moving here. It has been a wonderful experience for us, to raise our kids. We love our neighbors. We love our community. And the library has been a lifesaver. No lie, we've got a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, almost 9-year-old here in just a few weeks. And we almost live at the library. My kids love going there. They love reading. It is a passion of theirs. I've never been an avid reader until my kids started being avid readers. And I have loved being engaged with the staff there. They're delightful and helpful, and I want to help support that. I was asked to run for the board, which I think speaks to why it's important for us to be engaged as community members. And as Jesse said, we have a lot of amazing people running for office in our city council list, in our library board, and all around. We have a lot of people who are passionate about our community, who have great skills and talents. And whoever you vote for, you're going to get good candidates. You're going to have good representation in our community. And I say that to also say, I am running because I feel like I have a good ability to really connect with folks. Again, I said I'm a social worker. I've worked for the Department of Health and Human Services for the last several years. And I do want to pause for a minute. Thank you to everyone who was an advocate for the budget to make sure that we ensured that things were saved and protected that were important for our kids, for our families, for our seniors, and our communities. It is really, really important that we continue to stand up. I unfortunately did lose my job, but I have lots of things lined up for myself. I just know that there are people that I worked with that are still struggling, still going through the pains. So please make sure you continue to show up and have your voice heard. But also, I will say that a lot of my skills lie in being able to build bridges, build connections. I was doing adverse childhood experiences prevention work at the state level, trying to ensure that the state systems that we have in place don't continue to cause and perpetuate trauma and harm to our colleagues, to the people we work with as a state system and in terms of a workforce, as well as the programs that we provide, making sure that we are doing what we can to minimize or mitigate harm and ensure that we're protecting kids and families. How do we do that? Making sure that we are connecting in that way. So I think one of the skills I bring to the table is building those bridges, building those connections, because I didn't just I also work with labor and economic opportunity, treasury, education, corrections, all of these different departments, we all work together. Same thing in our local governments. These are ways in which we need to connect with one another and build relationships and build connections, and we can do that in our communities. So I am dedicated, I am qualified, and I am ready to work in whatever regard that is, even if it's just to volunteer, I'm there at the table. So thank you so much for your time this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. And go blue.
Okay, next we have Kelsey Winters. She's also a candidate for the Milan Library. Kelsey, you are here.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Winter, and I'm currently serving in an interim capacity on the Milan Public Library Board of Trustees, and I'm running to fill the position for a full term. I had never considered running for office before. I'm a single mom of 2 girls, working 2 jobs, so life is pretty busy for me. But the state of our country over the last 10 years, and specifically the last 5, has spurred me to action. I love the Milan Library. Getting involved with the library was one of the first ways that my family felt welcomed and grounded in Milan when we moved to town 7 years ago. My daughters both participate in book clubs there, and they're proud to have their insect collection and artwork displayed every year. The library and its staff help to make Milan feel like home for us after a difficult few years. And I can't express enough how much I appreciate the library for that. At the same time, I have also been increasingly concerned about the trend towards polarization and the mistreatment of marginalized communities in our country. We've seen more calls for book bans, and the federal government has threatened to defund the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which threatens such vital services as the Michigan Interlibrary Loan System called MelCat. My family uses MelCat all the time because the collection in Milan is relatively small compared to other library systems like Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. But MelCat gives us access to nearly every book we've ever wanted to read through its easy and convenient platform and system of sharing between communities. Public libraries are and should remain where all are welcome and supported, where different points of view and life experiences can meet and be celebrated, where neighbors can discover new passions and deepen their connection to the community. We need libraries to continue to host a diversity of ideas to show kids and adults alike that there are a multitude of lived experiences to discover, appreciate, and learn from. The Milan Library staff have done a wonderful job with the resources they have to keep that mission alive in our town, even through the tumultuous years of the pandemic when it seemed like life would never be normal again. My biracial daughters have felt valued there and have been able to see themselves reflected in the collection. They know they are safe and appreciated at the library. My girls have taught me that I need to be brave, to continue to stand up for their rights and the rights of others when they are threatened. It would be easy to put my head down and not rock the boat, but I need to be able to tell my kids that I did everything I could when prejudice and discrimination threatened not just me, but my community. As the late Jane Goodall has said, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. This is why I decided to run for the Board of Trustees, to stand beside the Milan Public Library and its staff and protect the mission of the library, to help grow its collection, improve the facilities, and make sure it remains a welcoming space for all, because everyone belongs at the library. Thank you.
Okay, now we have councils, we have a candidate for Saline Council, and I'm just gonna call your name and let me know if you're here so we can move along. Matthew, are you here? Matthew Onks, okay, you're gonna be first, so you can head on up here. Tremaine, okay. Brett Hollington? He's not, okay. And then Myri Weidner. Okay, great, all right, so we got everybody here.
I have my notes on my phone because save a tree. Right, so my name is Matthew Ongst, and I was born in Saline, and my family has lived here since the 1800s, when it was the village of Saline. It's a city where, not just where I'm from, but it's a part of who I am. When I was a child, I survived cancer. That experience taught me the strength, resilience, and the importance of community. Later, I had lost my father to medical malpractice, a loss that challenged my perspective and life forever. It reminded me how fragile things can be, but also how important it is to stand up for what's right and to improve the systems that fail people and to fight for others who don't have a voice. Like many families, we struggled during the 2008 financial crash. We lost our home and had to start over. My parents searched for new opportunities, which took us across the country. I spent much of my childhood in rural Illinois, where growing up as a gay kid was very difficult and challenges persisted. But no matter where we went, Saline was always home. So after I graduated high school during the COVID-19 pandemic, I came back. I started my career in finance at 18 while studying business administrations online. And I graduated this past March. I've been recognized by national honor societies and have had opportunities people my age only dream about. But despite hard work and determination, it's still almost impossible for someone in my generation to afford to live here. And not just young people. My grandparents, who have lived in Saline their entire lives, are being priced out of the city they love. And that's what motivated me to run for Saline City Council. I'm running to make sure people like my grandparents and people like me can continue to live, work, and build their futures right here in Saline. I want our community to stay connected, affordable, and full of opportunity. My focus is on 4 things: affordability, infrastructure, commerce and business development, and also better asset and time management. I believe in action, and my motto is simple. If you're going to do something, do it. Don't just stand there talking about it. And that's exactly how I plan to lead. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I believe the people of Saline do. That's why my approach is to ask, learn, and serve. I'll ask questions, I'll listen to the people who live these challenges every day, and I'll serve by turning your ideas into action. Together, we can build a Saline that honors the past, meets the challenges of the present, and creates opportunity for the future. Thank you.
Okay, next is Tremaine. Yeah, Tremaine, candidate for Saline Council.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tremaine Halsh, and I'm running for Saline City Council. I'm going to be honest with you. At first, I stood up here and I said that I was going to come up here and I was going to tell you all these great things that I plan to do for Saline. And I could tell you that, you know, I was born in the South to a single mom of 5. I could tell you what my life has been like prior to moving to Michigan, but I got to speak from my heart when I stand here. And what I want to tell everybody listening, and what I want to tell everybody who has a decision to make on November 4th, I want to tell them to continue to be the light. Right now, when you look across this country, when you look across this state, when you look across our world, I think it's incredibly easy to look at the darkness and look at the little light that each and every one of us possesses and think, what can I do? And I'll tell you, what you can do is to continue to be the party that has championed bold ideas, to continue to be the party that has fought for LGBTQ rights. I want to tell you to continue to be the party, continue to be the people who champion the voiceless, continue to be the people who champion just all the things that make us human, regardless of where you've come from, regardless of who you love, regardless of who you voted for. Be a light, be a champion, continue to uphold the ideals of our democracy. I've heard from every candidate here. I've seen democracy in action in this room, and I want to continue to implore every one of you to continue this fight. The darkness in this country will not win. And the reason why I'm running is because I'm terrified. I'm terrified that my 9 nieces and nephews could grow up in a world where they aren't able to be the fullest humans that they can be. I'm terrified that people in this world hold power who look at them as less than human. I'm terrified that there are people in office who want to take food out of their mouths, who want to take away their health care, and who want to make sure that they never have the opportunities that a lot of people in power had to make this world a better place. I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it scared anyway, because I'm sorry, it's been a rough week, but we have a duty to protect each and every child, not just here, but across this country. And I will not rest, and I know neither of you will not rest until Michigan, until the Midwest, until the North, the South, the Southwest, until this country is truly great for everybody. That's my time, and I thank y'all for listening.
And the last candidate for Saline Council, City Council is Mari. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, you can pronounce it.
So hi, everyone. I'm Mary Widener, and I'm running for Saline City Council. I've lived in Saline just over 10 years now, and my family moved to Saline because it has a small town charm, and we fell in love with it pretty much. And I'm also a longtime Michigander. I was born here, and I love our Great Lakes, so I'm very passionate about water preservation and making sure our water is clean everywhere in the state. As a data analyst, I believe in gathering accurate data, and I believe in analyzing the research that we have in front of us thoroughly. So the reason I'm running is because I've noticed there's a lack of communication between the city and the residents. There's times where things are built and residents don't even know it's happening or something that's being thought of or planned. And then they have no say in it at that point because it's already in progress. So I believe we can do a better job at communicating with our residents. And that is one of the things that I will be working on if I get elected. I currently serve on the Saline Parks Commission. I love nature, wildlife, and all animals. I am frequently out in my garden enjoying nature. So I also am a very passionate volunteer. I volunteer at events around Saline, around Washtenaw County, and I frequently volunteer with organizations like the Humane Society of Huron Valley and the Washtenaw County Conservation District. I'm also an advocate for affordable housing and other measures to help residents either purchase homes or to stay in their homes. I'm very aware that many of our residents are on fixed incomes or incomes that are pretty much fixed because it's very hard to move around right now in jobs. I believe we can expand resources and look into other avenues, such as providing possibly grants or other programs to help our residents keep up with their bills. I'm also very interested in the city safety. I firmly believe everything should be accessible, and I think we need to focus in Saline. We're missing a lot of sidewalks. We should have crosswalks that are very prominent so children and others can safely cross very busy roadways. And I would like to help with improving the walkability of the city. Lastly, I'd just like to say I really love Saline. Through working with the parks, volunteering with our community, and enjoying our city's charm, I just want to make sure Saline does thrive and will continue to thrive for generations from now. But that involves building a very strong foundation in the present. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's all our candidates. We want to say thank you for each and every one of you for coming, and I'm going to turn this back over.
How many seats are open for Saline? Oh, three. Oh, great.
Yeah, that's for you guys in Milan. Oh, that was a.
I just want to thank those last speakers for just amazing lesson in democracy. And it's too bad we can't just show this last part of the video to children in elementary schools. This is how it should work. It doesn't always.
Totally agree with that. Thank you to all the speakers, but also thank you, Eli. Thank you, Annie Somerville, the co-chairs of the program committee. This is a lot to put together, all of these different candidates. It was a lot. And thank you, Loretta, for your role. And that's all I got. Come out on a week from tomorrow, come to the potluck. It's really important. It's right. You register on our landing page, and we're looking at impact of immigration rates in Washtenaw County and mutual aid efforts in Washtenaw County. So come on out. Thanks for being here on this incredibly beautiful day. Take care.
Cool.